With the conclusion of the King's Conference, the atmosphere in the Great Luo Heaven Domain remained abuzz with excitement. Part of this was due to the birth of the new emperor, but perhaps the greatest reason was the reappearance of the ancient Heavenly Palace ruins. Everyone was well aware of the immense power of the ancient Heavenly Palace. It had once been a true behemoth, and even now, on the Tianluo continent, no force could compare to the status and strength it had once held. Faced with the ruins of such an ancient powerhouse, no one on the Tianluo continent could maintain a calm demeanor. In such ancient ruins, any fortunate encounter could potentially propel someone from obscurity to brilliance, allowing them to rise with the winds of destiny. Thus, the competition for the ancient Heavenly Palace ruins was bound to be the most intense the Tianluo continent had seen in countless years. Any force with even a little strength would certainly take part. After all, the allure of the four words, ancient Heavenly Palace, was simply too irresistible. While the entire Great Luo Heaven Domain buzzed with discussions about the so-called ancient Heavenly Palace, the Nine Nether Palace was no less restless. Ever since Muchen and the Nine Nether had successfully ascended to become emperors, the Nine Nether Palace had become the most powerful and influential force in the Great Luo Heaven Domain. After all, no force in the history of the Great Luo Heaven Domain had ever produced two emperors from the same faction. So, after the King's Conference, the Nine Nether Palace became extremely lively, with powerful figures flocking to visit, some seeking to join and pledge allegiance. While the same force may share a common cause, internal struggles over interests were inevitable. Gaining the support of two new emperors would certainly help the Nine Nether Palace avoid countless troubles in the future. However, despite the growing popularity of the Nine Nether Palace, Muchen and Nine Nether were troubled by the constant stream of visitors. They weren't particularly adept at handling such matters, so eventually, they had no choice but to send out their chief steward, Tang Bing, and announce that they were in seclusion. Only then could they gain some peace and quiet. Nine Nether Palace, inner courtyard. In a tranquil courtyard, a stone pavilion by a flowing stream exuded an air of serenity and elegance. Nine Nether sat cross-legged on a rock in the stream. Her slender figure, wrapped in a flowing dress, exhibited graceful curves. Her beautiful eyes were half closed, and spiritual energy swirled around her. Faintly, it seemed as though transparent flames burned fiercely around her, though no heat was emitted. Instead, the space around her constantly warped, and a powerful pressure radiated outwards. She had meditated like this for a long time before slowly opening her eyes, stretching her jade-like arms lazily. Her curves expanded, revealing a stunning silhouette. This, in turn, caught the attention of someone in the stone pavilion. Sensing the gaze, Nine Nether's beautiful eyes immediately locked onto the person. Inside the pavilion, Muchen cleared his throat, casually averting his gaze and returning to the jade slip in his hand. The Nine Nether Palace is so noisy outside, yet you two seem so comfortable hiding here. A teasing voice suddenly echoed through the courtyard. On the stream, the space fluctuated, and Mandara, dressed in a black gown and bare feet, like jade, appeared. Her exquisite face bore no sign of the usual coldness and authority, but instead, a gentle smile. "Greetings, Domain Lord." Nine Nether quickly rose and bowed. Muchen also put down the jade slip in his hand and smiled. "Have the matters with the Northern Realm Alliance been taken care of? I never thought you'd have time to visit." "There's nothing much to take care of. Those fools know how great the temptation of the ancient Heavenly Palace is, but with their strength alone, they don't have the qualifications to compete with other top forces on the Tianluo continent. So they'll care more about the alliance than I do," Mandara said, sitting on a rock with her small feet immersed in the cold stream. Speaking casually to this point, she glanced at Muchen and said, "But you're probably the one most eager to see the ancient Heavenly Palace. Now that it's finally reappeared, can you really stay so calm?" Muchen smiled and replied, "It's just an act. The news of the ancient Heavenly Palace has caused such an uproar. Who knows how many top forces will come? My half-step 9th grade strength will probably only be enough to watch from the sidelines." As the news of the ancient Heavenly Palace spread, Muchen gradually calmed down. Although he had been waiting for this moment ever since he gained the Great Sun indestructible body, He also understood how fierce the competition for the ancient heavenly palace would be in such a situation. Even someone as powerful as Mandara, an Upper Earth Supreme, did not have absolute confidence. How much less could he? With his half-step 9th grade, Mandara smiled faintly and said, "The evolution method of the great sun indestructible body is useless to ordinary people. Only those who have cultivated the body can successfully train it. So generally, no one will compete with you for it." Her tone shifted as she added, "However, while the competition may be fewer, the intensity will probably be even greater." Muchen nodded slightly. To compete for the evolutionary method, the person must have practiced the great sun indestructible body, which meant they were undoubtedly a rare genius with immense potential. Otherwise, they wouldn't meet the harsh requirements needed to cultivate such a body. Fighting against such an extraordinary talent would be extremely intense, likely surpassing any battle Muchen had faced before. However, Muchen was not afraid of this. How powerful was the ancient heavenly palace? In ancient times, Muchen pondered for a moment, feeling the need to understand this ancient hegemonic force in order to decide how to act within its ruins. The ancient heavenly palace is divided into 5 halls and 9 mansions. The person in the grand hunting war last time was the 4th hall master of the ancient heavenly palace. In their prime, all 5 hall masters reached the pinnacle of Earth's supreme perfection, Mandara explained slowly. The 9 mansion lords, though slightly weaker, have all reached the Earth supreme level, with the best of them already being Upper Earth Supreme, Mandara added. Upon hearing this, both Muchen and Jiu were deeply moved. The mere lineup of these figures was terrifying. The ancient heavenly palace truly deserved its title as the invincible ruler of the Tianluo continent. But that's not even the most terrifying part. Above all, the ancient heavenly palace also possesses 3 heavenly supremes, Mandara said, her expression turning extremely grave. Hiss! Muchen and Jiu sucked in a cold breath. This news clearly exceeded their expectations. Could it be that besides the heavenly emperor, the ancient heavenly palace had 2 more peak-level experts? Mandara seemed to know what the 2 were thinking and shook her head. The other 2 heavenly supremes are also incarnations of the heavenly emperor. Incarnations of the heavenly emperor? Muchen and Jiu stared, clearly unable to understand the meaning of this. Looking at their stunned expressions, Mandara explained, "Do you know that in ancient times, there were 36 ultimate divine abilities, and the heavenly emperor practiced one of them, called One Qi transforms 3 purities? He split himself into 3, creating 2 avatars that seemed both independent and unified, an extraordinary and mysterious feat. These 2 avatars both possessed heavenly supreme strength. Therefore, the heavenly emperor alone is equivalent to 3 heavenly supremes. 36 ultimate divine abilities." Muchen swallowed hard. He had previously learned about divine abilities, understanding that they were divided into minor divine abilities, major divine abilities, and super divine abilities, with clear distinctions. The difference between them was like the gap between the moon and fireflies. However, he had never heard of the 36 ultimate divine abilities. Thinking back to the body sacrifice demon fist, which he considered a fragmented major divine ability, its power was already astonishing. Now, considering that these ultimate divine abilities were 2 levels higher, Muchen could begin to understand their terrifying power. After all, even someone like Mandara, an Upper Earth Supreme, would be tempted by major divine abilities. As for super divine abilities, perhaps even Mandara had never obtained one. The 36 ultimate divine abilities might be the supreme level that even heavenly supremes chased after. For Muchen, that was far beyond his reach. The ancient heavenly palace ruled over the Tianluo continent, and within it are countless coveted treasures. If you enter, there are 2 places you must find, Mandara said, looking at Muchen. What 2 places? Muchen asked, surprised. The Divine Ability Hall and the Heavenly Pool. Mandara nodded and explained, the Divine Ability Hall is where the ancient heavenly palace stored its divine abilities. It contains all kinds of powerful techniques, and you might find the evolutionary method for the great sun indestructible body there. As for the Heavenly Pool, it's even more important. Even within the ancient heavenly palace, it is a coveted treasure for many powerful figures. The heavenly pool possesses immense divine power, capable of stabilizing one's spiritual foundation, completing oneself, and greatly increasing the success rate of breaking through obstacles and overcoming the spiritual tribulation. In ancient times, only those who had made great contributions within the ancient heavenly palace could gain the opportunity to access it. When Muchen and Jiuyu first heard Mandala's words, they remained calm. However, when they heard that the heavenly pool could increase the success rate of breaking through obstacles and overcoming the spiritual tribulation, their eyes immediately burned with intense heat. That it was well known that in the Great Thousand Worlds, only those who reached the Earth's supreme level could be considered super strong and dominate a region. Below that, even ninth grade supremes were still worlds apart from them. However, while the Earth Supreme is undeniably powerful, less than 1 in 10 ninth grade supremes can eventually break through to become Earth Supremes. The biggest reason for this is the immense shackles of the Earth Supreme level, and the need to survive the terrifying spiritual tribulation, a test so deadly that failure either leads to death or ruin before the breakthrough can be completed. As a result, this incredibly low success rate has caused many powerful ninth grade supremes at their peak to hesitate, afraid to take that final step and challenge the Earth Supreme level, fearing that they may not survive the spiritual tribulation and be completely destroyed. Given that Muchen and the others are now close to the Earth Supreme level, they are also aware of some of these facts. Of course, besides that, you need to be wary of one person. His name is Kalevala, and he might be your greatest adversary during this trip to the ancient heavenly palace, Mandara said, her eyes narrowing slightly as she spoke. Greatest adversary? Muchen froze for a moment. Then his pupils immediately contracted in realization. For Mandara to give him such a serious warning, the reason was obvious. This Kalevala. He probably also cultivated the great sun indestructible body. Kalevala. In the quiet courtyard, Muchen's expression grew solemn. His eyes flashed with sharp light. As if facing a formidable foe, he looked up at Mandara and asked, "Who exactly is this person?" The northern domain had been embroiled in constant conflict and was relatively insignificant compared to other regions of the Tianluo continent, so news from other regions was not well known. This was the first time Muchen had heard this name. He is the holy son of the sacred demon palace in the southern domain of Tianluo continent. Kalevala's fame on Tianluo continent is far greater than yours, Mandara said with a teasing smile as she glanced at Muchen. The southern domain is even larger than our northern domain, and during the process of expanding its territory, Kalevala made significant contributions. He destroyed countless sects and forces, and now, many forces within the southern domain tremble and submit beneath his feet. Even the powers in surrounding regions fear him greatly. Now, he has already advanced to the 9th grade supreme. It is said that when he first entered the 9th grade, he wasn't afraid of 9th grade peak experts, which was truly shocking. Some enthusiasts have even created a ranking list of the young generation in Tianluo continent, and Kalevala is ranked 3rd. Muchen's eyes flickered with surprise. To be ranked in the top 3 among the younger generation on Tianluo continent was no small feat, especially considering that Tianluo continent was a supercontinent in the Great Thousand Worlds, teeming with geniuses. Standing out among so many exceptional talents was undoubtedly impressive. Then where does Muchen rank? The Nine Nether suddenly asked with a grin. Mandara glanced at Muchen and said, "It seems no one has even bothered to rank him." Muchen's face instantly became awkward upon hearing this. The northern domain was insignificant on Tianluo continent, with constant conflicts and no true hegemon ever emerging, so it was understandable that not many would pay attention to this place. Furthermore, Muchen often disappeared, with no significant achievements to showcase, so it was not surprising that he would not be ranked among the young powerhouses of Tianluo continent. Naturally, a ranking was out of the question. However, it was clear that Nine Nether and Mandara were aware of this and deliberately teased him, so Muchen could only helplessly shake his head. Nevertheless, Kalevala was indeed incredibly powerful, and he could only rank 3rd among the young generation in Tianluo continent. This highlighted just how formidable the younger generation there was. In comparison, Even the powerful beings he encountered in the divine beast planes were not on the same level. Of course, Muchen knew that while the individuals he met in the divine beast planes were considered proud children of their respective divine beast races, they were not top-tier talents. For instance, Bai Ming, while impressive within the Phoenix clan, was probably not considered a core genius. Then what about the sacred demon palace? Muchen shook his head and shifted the topic. What's their background? Mandara's smile seemed to fade, and a cold gleam flashed in her golden eyes as she replied. The sacred demon palace is the true ruler of the southern domain. Its palace master, Lu Yuan, is known as the sacred demon emperor. Many years ago, he reached the upper earth supreme level. Sacred demon emperor, Lu Yuan? Do you have a history with him? Muchen was taken aback. That was quite a domineering title, but he quickly noticed the shift in Mandara's tone. His curiosity piqued. Why would you have a past with him? The northern domain and the southern domain were separated by millions of miles, with many regions in between. Even Earth Supremes would need a long time to cross such distances, so why would there be any connection between Mandara and Lu Yuan? An old acquaintance, Mandara said indifferently. The curse in my body was planted by him many years ago, when he schemed against me. Muchen's expression shifted slightly as he sensed the strange curse within the Mandala body. This curse had once tormented her to the point of wanting to die in the past. She could only retreat into long periods of seclusion and sleep, and had it not been for meeting him, she feared she would still be unable to emerge from her confinement. What he didn't expect was that this curse would be connected to the sacred demon Emperor Lu Yuan. It seems we really are fated. The holy son of the sacred demon palace will be my sworn enemy, and you will be the sworn enemy of that sacred demon emperor, Muchen remarked helplessly as he looked at Mandala's cold little face. Therefore, you must acquire the method to evolve into the great sun indestructible bodied it absolutely must not fall into the hands of that Garuda. Mandala's small face was serious. Muchen nodded lightly, his black eyes just as resolute. He understood how crucial the method of evolution was to him. He had planned for many years for this moment, and now that he finally saw the light of dawn, he would never let it go easily. Regardless of how strong the reputation of that so-called Garuda was on the Tianluo continent, as long as he dared to compete for it, Muchen would fight him to the end. I've mentioned the Divine Ability Hall and the Heavenly Pool to you. Perhaps Garuda will also learn of this from Lu Yuan, so you'll need to be cautious, Muchen added. Mandala nodded again, but then Muchen, puzzled, asked, the ancient heavenly palace disappeared thousands of years ago, and such news should be extremely secretive. How is it that both you and Lu Yuan know about it so clearly? Mandala's expression tightened as she fell silent for a moment. Slowly, she responded, because both that guy and I are from the ancient heavenly palace. What? Muchen and Jiuyo's eyes widened in disbelief. Mandala had come from the ancient heavenly palace? Wasn't it said that the ancient heavenly palace disappeared along with the fall of the heavenly emperor after the ancient battle? How could Mandala and Lu Yuan still come out of it? This information must be highly classified. Probably, very few people on the Tianluo continent knew about it. Otherwise, Mandala and Lu Yuan wouldn't be so undisturbed. The situation is quite complicated, and I can't explain. It clearly at the moment my memory of that time is very vague, and I can only recall bits and pieces. Mandala waved her small hand and didn't elaborate further. Seeing that Mandala didn't want to talk more, Muchen and Jiuyo had no choice but to suppress their shock and curiosity that it was now clear to them why Mandala was so knowledgeable about the ancient heavenly palace. She had come from there herself. Are there any powerful forces eyeing the ancient heavenly palace this time? Muchen changed the subject and asked. Anyone who's eyeing the ancient heavenly palace is a formidable character, Mandala pouted. From the information I've gathered, the southern domain's overlord, the sacred demon palace, will definitely participate, along with the Xia Empire from the eastern domain, the Great Desolation sect from the western domain, the Beast King from the Million Mountains, the Lord of Netherworld Gorge, and so on. The leaders of these forces all possess the strength of Upper Earth Supremes. Their foundations are also incredibly deep. In addition, there are some top-tier hidden experts on the Tianluo continent, and even some big names from beyond the continent, who have come upon hearing the news. Muchen couldn't help but be moved. With such a terrifying lineup, it was likely that most of the top figures on the Tianluo continent wouldn't miss out. Once the battles broke out, it would truly be earth-shattering. Will the Heavenly Supreme intervene? Muchen asked softly. Although individuals at the Heavenly Supreme level were usually uninterested in common ancient ruins, the ancient Heavenly Palace was different. That it was the place where the Heavenly Emperor had fallen, and in ancient times, even among the Heavenly Supremes, the Heavenly Emperor had been one of the most top-tier existences. His cultivation of 1 Qi transforms 3 purities was one of the 36 supreme divine abilities. Faced with such a divine art, even a Heavenly Supreme would be tempted. It's said that the place where the ancient Heavenly Palace has reappeared, the vast spiritual power shattered the void, causing numerous spatial turbulence. Also, the ancient Heavenly Palace is not a benevolent place. Back then, the Heavenly Emperor and a demon emperor from an outer domain had a battle of destruction there, with countless hidden tricks. These tricks are even more dangerous for equally powerful Heavenly Supremes. So, I don't think any Heavenly Supreme would take such a great risk to enter. Mandara pondered for a moment before speaking. Muchen sighed in relief upon hearing this. If even a Heavenly Supreme would be reluctant to take action, then it seemed like they wouldn't have to worry too much. Although the forces assembling were formidable, to a Heavenly Supreme, these forces were likely just ants. However, even so, the battle for the ancient Heavenly Palace this time is bound to be the most intense and lively one in the history of the Tianluo continent for countless years. In that ancient Heavenly Palace, even I will inevitably be restrained. So, if you want to compete for the evolution method of the Great Sun indestructible body, you'll have to rely on your own strength. I won't be able to help. Mandara's golden eyes looked at Muchen as she reminded him. The only thing I can do for you is to tie down people like Lu Yuan and the others. That's enough. Muchen smiled and nodded. The reason he joined the Great Luo Heavenly Domain and worked hard to improve his status was simply for Mandara's words. He knew that without a powerful background and the support of an Upper Earth Supreme behind him, even if he managed to obtain the method for the Great Sun indestructible body, it would be impossible for him to take it away smoothly. Mandara nodded in agreement, then flicked her finger, sending a beam of golden light toward Muchen. He caught it, and the golden light swirled in his palm, transforming into an ancient golden scroll. His gaze swept over it, and his expression suddenly froze, as he sensed some familiar fluctuations. Spiritual arrays. This is a heaven-rank high-grade spiritual array. Muchen looked up at Mandara in surprise. Your understanding of spiritual arrays has become increasingly profound. High-level spiritual array diagrams like this one are becoming rarer. I've spent quite some time gathering it, and only recently did I manage to get my hands on this one, Mandara replied faintly. Although you are now half a step into the 9th grade, the opponents you will face this time are the top-tier young powerhouses who dominate the Tianluo continent. They are far stronger than the figures we have in the northern domain. So, you'll need to prepare more. Muchen slowly gripped the golden scroll in his hand, then looked at Mandara and nodded seriously. Thank you. He could feel Mandara's intentions. She had done everything she could to help him. Such a high-level array diagram would be difficult to find, even in the Great Luo Heavenly Domain. Mandara casually waved her hand, then turned and walked away. Her voice floated back gently. Make sure to prepare well during this time. In half a day, we leave for the ancient Heavenly Palace ruins. Muchen watched Mandara's figure recede, his hand clenched tightly. His dark eyes gradually began to burn with intense battle intent. Although he was about to face young powerhouses who ruled the Tianluo continent, it was impossible for him to bow down and surrender. Since that's the case, let's have a real showdown and see who can laugh last. Muchen licked his lips, his anticipation for the upcoming battle for the ancient Heavenly Palace becoming overwhelming. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. During this half-month of preparation, Mandara finalized the lineup for the Great Luo Heavenly Domain. The number was not large, but every individual was handpicked, representing the finest forces from the domain. They were essentially the most elite strength the Great Luo Heavenly Domain could muster. For this expedition to the ancient Heavenly Palace, Mandara herself would take part, and the 5 kings and lords would not be absent. Even some powerful city lords from major cities were allowed to join. Overall, the number seemed to be around 50, but even the weakest individual among them had reached the 5th grade supreme. The ancient heavenly palace ruins were full of danger, and no one knew what terrifying crises might be hidden within. Therefore, charging in with an army recklessly would be incredibly foolish. Thus, the decision was made to send a small but elite team. However, this mission was not only undertaken by the Great Luo Heavenly Domain, but was a coalition of the top forces in the Northern Domain. The other factions were still integrating their forces, causing some delays. Given the slightly sluggish preparation, Mandara gave it some thought and directly ordered Muchen and Xia to lead several kings ahead, traveling to the location where the ancient Heavenly Palace ruins had manifested. Their mission was to gather as much information as possible about the ruins before the Northern Domain Coalition Army arrived. Muchen was more than willing to take on this vanguard role. He had long been stirred by the matter of the ancient Heavenly Palace, and in this state, even his cultivation progress was sluggish. It would be better to go ahead and scout the ruins, especially since it was so far from the Northern Domain. Even though Mandara was an Upper Earth Supreme, she could not possibly have complete knowledge of the situation there. At the Great Luo Heaven, outside a teleportation spiritual array, Muchen stood with his hands behind his back, with Xia by his side. Behind them were 3 figures, standing with their hands respectfully at their sides. One was an elderly man, another a middle-aged man, and the third was a beautiful woman. The elderly man emitted a slight aura of spiritual power, strong enough to show that his strength had reached the level of 7th grade supreme. He was a newly ascended king of the Great Luo Heaven Domain, and he was known as the White King there. This elder's strength was considered top tier even among the kings, and his experience was unparalleled. He had once traveled through the Tianluo continent, and it was this journey that had brought him to this place. The middle-aged man and the beautiful woman were also impressive, both having reached the 7th grade supreme. They had frequently visited the Xia Palace recently. In their past, they had been wandering cultivators, and thanks to a series of fortunate opportunities, they had cultivated their way to their current strength. Thus, they were in need of protection and better cultivation resources, which the Xia Palace, with its status as one of the One Palace 2 emperors, could provide. Muchen had initially paid no attention to their allegiance. However, after Tang Bing, the head butler, conducted an investigation, she had recommended them to Muchen and Xia. These two had endured years of tough cultivation, and their personalities were steadfast. They were seen as having potential, and most importantly, they were loyal, not betrayers. Having managed Xia Palace for many years, Tang Bing had developed a keen eye. Both Chen and Xia trusted her judgment. Eventually, they had agreed to accept their allegiance, and on this journey to the ancient Heavenly Palace, they had brought the two along. Lord Mu, this spiritual array leads directly to a city on the outskirts of the Great Luo Heaven Domain. From there, with a few more transfers, we can leave the Northern Realm as quickly as possible, the beautiful woman said. She wore a red dress that highlighted her graceful figure. With just a slight application of makeup, she exuded an alluring charm. Her name was Tan Xiao, known as Autumn King in the Great Luo Heaven Domain. It was said that she had many suitors among the current kings. Good. Muchen nodded, exchanging a glance with Xia. Let's go. Xia had no objections, and the two of them stepped forward together, entering the spiritual array at a flash of spiritual light, and they disappeared without a trace. After they vanished, the elderly White King glanced at Tan Xiao and the slightly awkward middle-aged man, then slowly spoke. Regarding this trip, the domain lord sent word. While you two are exceptionally talented and powerful, you are still young. The three of us have roamed for many years and have experience. It's best for us to watch over you both closely. If anything were to happen, the Great Luo Heaven Domain may not be able to protect us. White Elder, you're too kind. Tan Xiao smiled gently. If you two graciously accepted me, I would gladly repay you with my life. If anyone tries to harm the two of you, they'll have to step over my dead body, the burly middle-aged man said, patting his chest. His expression, though slightly awkward, was filled with solemnity. He acted like a rock, unyielding and firm, and was known as Stone King in the Great Luo Heaven domain. Seeing this, White Elder nodded without saying much else. He led the two into the spiritual array, and with another flash of light, they disappeared, leaving behind only a faint ripple of spatial fluctuations. In the far western land of the Tianluo continent, this region was one of the most barren places on the continent. There were countless natural disasters, such as violent gales strong enough to tear mountains apart, snowstorms that froze the earth for hundreds of miles, and bizarre beasts that roamed the area. Though their intelligence was low, they were difficult to deal with due to their strange abilities. Such threats made this place rarely visited by anyone. Only some organizations dedicated to hunting exotic beasts and searching for rare treasures would come here. However, in the last half-year, everything changed. In the depths of the far western land, space began to crack, and ancient palatial ruins slowly became visible. It was the ancient Heavenly Palace. This event completely ignited the entire Tianluo continent, and this barren land unexpectedly became one of the most sought-after places on the continent. Countless forces and powerful cultivators flocked to the area, turning this once desolate region into a place as bustling as the center of the continent. In fact, the number and strength of the cultivators here surpassed even that of the central regions. It could be said without a doubt that the far western land had become the new center of the Tianluo continent, and this was all because of the reappearance of the ancient Heavenly Palace, once the ruler of the Tianluo continent. And that was also the destination for Muchen and his group. The distance between the northern domain and the far western land was nearly half the span of the entire Tianluo continent. Such a terrifying distance, if Muchen were to attempt to fly directly, would likely take him at least half a year to cover. Fortunately, there were many teleportation spirit arrays along the way. Even so, after traversing many vast regions, when Muchen and his group began to approach the far western land, more than half a month had passed. In a small town near the far western land, Muchen and his group sat in a tea house. The town, once quite remote, now bustled with activity due to its proximity to the far western land. In the sky above, streaks of light continuously zipped by, clearly heading in the direction of the far western land. Inside the tea house, people came and went, each surrounded by swirling spiritual energy, indicating that they were no weaklings. Lord Mu, Lord Jiuyu, we're getting closer to the far western land. However, there are no more teleportation arrays from here on out, but we'll have to travel the rest of the way on foot, said Tan Xiu, sitting beside Muchen, her voice soft, and Muchen nodded slightly. The far western land was far too desolate, and it made sense that no one had invested resources in building teleportation arrays there. Fortunately, they were nearly there at their current pace. They would arrive in just a few days. From the information we've gathered, there's a large city at the edge of the far western land, called West City. It's the largest city near the region. Right now, it is home to many powerful figures from various factions. Some even returned after venturing deep into the far western land for information. We should be able to find some clues about the ancient Heavenly Palace there, said Bai Wang, his white hair flowing as he spoke respectfully. Some even say there are reckless individuals who dared to sneak into the cracks of the ancient Heavenly Palace to seize treasures, only to auction them for high prices in West City. That's been drawing a lot of attention. Oh, Muchen's eyes flickered slightly. These people were truly fearless. The ancient Heavenly Palace ruins were fraught with spatial turbulence, and one misstep could result in being sucked into a spatial rift. Entering now would certainly be the height of foolishness. However, if they were able to obtain something from the ancient Heavenly Palace, it might provide valuable leads, allowing them to stay one step ahead once they actually entered. Great opportunities were often about who could seize them first. It seems we'll need to visit this West City, Jiuyu said, nodding gently to Muchen agreed. Besides, the city likely gathered many powerful individuals from across the Tianluo continent. He was curious if any of the younger generation, those who had made names for themselves, would be there. He wanted to see for himself. Let's go to West City. Suppressing his thoughts, Muchen stood up and left the tea house, transforming into a streak of light as he shot into the sky. Jiuyu and the others followed closely behind, disappearing into the horizon in the blink of an eye, but at the same time. In a distant city, a young woman in a white dress stepped out of an inn. Her eyebrows were like paintings, her face stunningly beautiful, and her eyes were so lively they seemed to shimmer. She appeared as if she had stepped out of a celestial painting. However, she seemed unconcerned with her ethereal appearance. She casually took out a rare spiritual fruit radiating impressive spiritual energy, and amidst the envious gazes of many, she devoured it in no time. Afterward, she lazily clapped her jade-like hands, raised her delicate face, and muttered to herself, "That person is also in the Tianluo continent. I wonder where he is now. I still owe him a favor from back then." She tilted her head and thought for a moment before pouting in slight helplessness. With her hands behind her back, she leisurely left the city. West City, located on the edge of the far western land, had once been a desolate place. The population was sparse, and the city seemed to be on the verge of collapse. However, with the sudden emergence of the ancient heavenly palace deep in the far western land, West City had come back to life. The bustling atmosphere and overwhelming number of people were beyond imagination. When Muchen and his group arrived at a mountain peak just outside West City, they were greeted by a continuous, blinding array of light streaks. The sound of wind cutting through the air was deafening, never stopping for even a moment. Countless waves of spiritual energy fluctuations rippled through the vast city, so intense that even from a great distance, one could sense the turbulence caused by the dense gathering of spiritual power, causing the worldly spiritual energy to boil. This ancient heavenly palace is truly irresistible. It's incredible that it can turn an ordinary city into such a thriving metropolis. Muchen couldn't help but marvel at the scene, but he could faintly sense that within this city, whose spiritual energy was vast like smoke, there were numerous obscure, yet powerful fluctuations. The owners of these energies must possess formidable strength, to the point that even he had to take them seriously. Based on his estimations, the number of powerful individuals in this one city was probably greater than the elite forces of the entire Great Luo Heaven Domain. Of course, this was only a superficial comparison. Otherwise, just Mandara alone could probably level this city with a single strike. And clearly, there were no terrifying existences like Upper Earth Supremes in this city. "Let's go." Muchen exchanged a glance with Jiu, then swiftly shot forward. Bai Wang, Tan Xiao, and Shi Wang followed closely behind, and the five of them transformed into streaks of light, blending into the overwhelming shadows and light, entering the vast city. Upon entering the city, Muchen and his group found an inn to settle down, while Bai Lao and Tan Xiao went out to gather information about West City. Shi Wang followed behind them like the most loyal guard, and Muchen observed the division of labor between the three and couldn't help but silently praise the decision to bring them along. It was truly wise. Otherwise, he would likely still be searching for intelligence himself, which was no easy task. With the experienced Bai Lao here, he and Jiu only needed to wait for the information to come to them. It saved them so much effort. Inside the inn, it was noisy and chaotic, but amidst the clamor, many voices reached Muchen's ears. This place, filled with both dragons and snakes, was a hub of information. "I heard that there was another fight in the northern part of the city recently. It seems a young man with a golden spear was involved. His strength is no joke, probably at the peak of 8th grade supreme." That's golden sacred spear Lu Ming. He's said to be from the western regions. At such a young age, he's already at the peak of 8th grade supreme. He's been challenging people recently, and many have fallen before him. This person is truly exceptional, but I think he's still not on the level of that Green Lotus swordsman who appeared a few days ago. Based on his strength, he's probably at the half-step 9th grade. Haha, he cut off the arms of 4 8th grade supremes with one sword. Truly remarkable. And about half a month ago, a constant stream of information filled Muchen's ears, making him silently amazed. It seemed that the far western land had indeed gathered many powerful figures from across the Tianluo continent. These individuals, if they appeared in other places, would certainly be considered top talents of the younger generation. But here, they seemed to emerge one after another, which was truly astounding. Boom! Just as Muchen was marveling at the hidden talents in West City, a sudden thunderous sound echoed through the sky above the city. Looking up, he saw a lightning flickering in the distant horizon, And then the lightning surged toward the city, appearing in the sky in the blink of an eye. Immediately, countless eyes in the city turned toward the sky, and voices of surprise echoed everywhere. Muchen looked up, stunned for a moment, then clicked his tongue that he realized that the flash of lightning revealed a golden, magnificent carriage, adorned with golden dragon patterns, and emanating a powerful spiritual energy fluctuation. This golden carriage was an artifact of course. The most striking part wasn't the carriage itself, but the four massive beasts ahead of it. They resembled a cross between a horse and a lion, their entire bodies silver, with lightning flashing beneath their feet, as if they were harnessing the power of thunder. These were thunder lion beasts, rumored to possess the bloodline of divine beasts. If they were to grow, they could evolve into true divine beasts. Muchen was astonished to see them being used to pull the carriage. The display of power was truly impressive. Who is this? Such an extravagant display, Xiaoyu remarked, her brows furrowing slightly, clearly displeased at seeing divine beasts treated as mere mounts. Muchen shook his head, then listened carefully. From inside the inn, he heard some amazed and envious voices. Such an extravagant display. Look at the patterns on that golden carriage. It must be someone from the Great Xia dynasty of the Eastern Domain. TSK, the Great Xia dynasty, the overlord of the Eastern Domain. I didn't expect them to be here. The person in that carriage must at least be a prince of the Great Xia dynasty. Hee. There are also sounds of laughter from women inside the carriage. It seems the person enjoys such things. Among the Great Xia royal family, the only one who has such a fondness and behaves so openly is probably the fourth Prince Xiahong. Oh, fourth Prince Xiahong, the one ranked 20th on the young power ranking of the Tianluo continent. Of course, it's him. It said that Xiahong has just entered 9th grade, but his methods are quite unusual. He follows the absorption path, so his progress has been rapid. Muchen and Xiaoyu heard the voices coming from the wine pavilion, their eyes narrowing slightly. It turned out that the person was the fourth prince of the Great Xia dynasty. No wonder his actions were so flamboyant. The Great Xia dynasty was dominant in the eastern region, powerful and with deep foundations, so they could afford to be so bold. The Great Xia dynasty is indeed formidable, Muchen sighed. Compared to the constantly warring northern domain, the eastern region was obviously much more peaceful. The main reason for this was the presence of the Great Xia dynasty, like a fierce tiger sitting in the region, intimidating all sides. Xiaoyu also nodded, about to speak, but her attention was once again drawn to the voices from the wine pavilion. Although Xiahong is impressive, he's still vastly inferior when compared to the crown prince of the Great Xia dynasty. Of course, the crown prince is famous across the Tianluo continent. He ranks 4th on the young power ranking, far stronger than Xiahong. The speaker's voice was filled with awe and reverence for the crown prince, as though he was a towering mountain. Hearing this, both Muchen and Xiaoyu were slightly shaken, their expressions turning more serious. The crown prince of the Great Xia dynasty was so powerful that he could rank 4th on the young power ranking, almost on par with the legendary Garuda. The Great Xia dynasty indeed couldn't be underestimated, and the Tianluo continent truly lived up to its reputation as a supercontinent, with prodigies emerging endlessly. As everyone in the wine pavilion, including Muchen, was secretly amazed by the power of the Great Xia dynasty, a figure lazily walked out from the golden chariot in the sky. On either side of him were beautiful women, clinging to him with perfect grace. As soon as the figure appeared, it drew countless gazes. He wore a golden robe, exuding an air of nobility. His handsome face was slightly pale, and the smile at the corner of his lips carried an eerie charm, which only added to his allure. Clearly, this person was Xiahong, the fourth prince of the Great Xia dynasty. Xiahong stood high above, his gaze lazily sweeping over the crowd below, as if inspecting his subjects. Then, his attention was drawn to Xiaoyu, who was sitting next to Muchen. Xiaoyu still wore a black dress, her slender figure accentuating her curves. She had beautiful, delicate features, and her usual calm demeanor gave off an air of cold elegance. Moreover, due to the awakening of her undying phoenix bloodline, she possessed an aura of nobility that made her stand out as extraordinary. Thus, When Xia Hong's eyes landed on Jiu Yu, a gleam of light flickered in the depths of his gaze. However, before he could study her further, Jiu Yu sensed his stare. Her delicate face immediately turned cold, and the chilling gaze she cast towards him caused Xia Hong's expression to subtly change, clearly sensing a threat. Interesting. Xia Hong smirked lazily, not expecting this unfamiliar beauty to possess such impressive strength, almost on par with his own. This trip was proving to be quite rewarding. Xia Hong's eyes flickered, but he didn't approach. Instead, he gave Jiu Yu a distant nod and smile, showing a hint of grace. As for Muchen, who was sitting next to Jiu Yu, he was clearly ignored. Despite his actions, Jiu Yu remained cold, even as a chilling light began to gather in her eyes. She was just about to take action against this overly confident man when Muchen suddenly reached out and gently patted her clenched hand. He smiled at her and said, "Seems like you're still quite charming, drawing attention the moment you arrive." Hearing his teasing, Jiu Yu couldn't help but shoot him a white glare. However, her demeanor softened considerably compared to her previous coldness, and for a moment, she displayed a rare, charming allure up in the golden chariot. Xia Hong noticed Muchen's action and Jiu Yu's softer expression. His narrow eyes narrowed slightly, and his gaze, sharp as a blade, finally shifted to the young man he had previously ignored, who seemed even younger than him. Sensing Xia Hong's gaze, Muchen smiled. Faintly, leisurely lifted his head, and met his eyes with no trace of fear in his black eyes to eye in the bustling city. The two gazes intertwined, carrying a coldness that flowed silently.